We've all been told the same thing our whole lives. The secret to getting rich is just to work harder. It's the oldest advice in the book. But if that were really true, wouldn't the hardest working people also be the wealthiest? Let's dive into this, because we're about to uncover a paradox that might just change the way you think about money forever.
So picture this. On one side, you've got Martin. He's working a grueling 12 hours a day, literally pouring his blood, sweat, and tears into his job. But at the end of the month, he's got barely anything to show for it. Then, on the other side, you have a businessman. He takes a couple of meetings, and by dinner time, he's driving home in a brand new car. I mean, they're both working, but their results are worlds apart.
So this gets us to the big question, right? Why? It's not because Martin is lazy or doesn't care. He's clearly one of the hardest workers out there. So what gives? Why is he struggling while others seem to build wealth with a fraction of the physical effort? Well, the answer, it turns out, is surprisingly simple. The game of wealth, it isn't won by working harder. It's won by working smarter. It's not about how much you sweat. It's about the intelligence of the system you create. Okay, first up, let's just tear down this hard work paradox. It's the myth we were all raised on. Put in more hours, get more money. But does that idea really hold up in the real world? Just think about it for a second. If wealth was a direct result of pure physical effort, who would be the richest people on the planet? It'd be construction workers, day laborers, rickshaw pullers. These folks put in back-breaking hours, day in and day out. But the reality, as we all know, is the exact opposite.
And that leads us to a really crucial truth. Hard work is absolutely essential for survival. It puts food on the table, it pays the rent, but it has a very hard, very real ceiling. By itself, it just cannot make you wealthy. So if hard work alone can't get you there, what does? Well, it all comes down to two very different formulas for making money. Let's actually break down the simple math that separates the poor from the rich. On the left, this is the formula most of the world uses. Your effort multiplied by your time equals your money. This is the classic hamster wheel, right? To make more, you have to work more. But look at the formula on the right. A system multiplied by your skill equals money. The key here is what's missing. Time is completely removed from the equation. And here's the fundamental difference in a nutshell. Most people are in the business of selling their time, but there are only 24 hours in a day, which means your income is permanently capped. The wealthy, on the other hand, are in the business of building and selling systems that work for them, completely independent of their time. This brings us to the real game changer, the power of a system. This is all about making a huge shift from working in your life, trading those hours for dollars, to working on your life by building assets that do the work for you. So what do I even mean by a system? Well, it's any process or asset that keeps working and creating value for you 24/7, even when you're sleeping or on vacation. Think about an author who writes a book once but gets royalties for years, or a developer who builds an app that sells thousands of copies while they sleep. They all built a system that works without them. Let's use a really simple example. A teacher in a classroom can teach, maybe 30 students at once? Their income and their impact are completely limited by the hours they're physically in that room. That's the effort times time formula in action. But what if that same teacher decides to build a system? They put in the hard work once to create an amazing online course. Now that one single asset can be sold to thousands, maybe even millions of students all over the world, earning money automatically, day and night. Now that is a system. And this chart just lays it out perfectly. Manual labor requires constant, high effort for a pretty low, limited return. Building a system, though, it takes a big effort up front, but the potential for scale and impact is just exponential. Okay, so how do you actually start building these things? Well, it doesn't start with a pile of cash. It starts right up here, in your head. It begins with a really important mindset shift. You have to learn to think like a system builder. There's this fantastic story about a wealthy man who was asked how he managed to be so successful without knowing everything about his business. And he just laughed and said, "I don't need to know everything. In my office, I have an expert for every switch. I just flip the switch when there's a problem and the right expert comes to solve it." That idea is just brilliant. So the system builder's mindset is pretty simple. First, you have to stop trying to do everything yourself. Second, you leverage the skills of other people. You build a team of experts. And third, your job is to create and oversee the whole system. You become the conductor of the orchestra, not just one of the violinists. Your real value comes from the beautiful symphony you create, not from trying to play every single instrument yourself.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, if this is so powerful, why isn't everyone doing it? And the answer usually comes down to one single massive roadblock that stops most people dead in their tracks: fear.
And yeah, these are the big ones, right? We've all felt these. The fear that you might fail, the fear of what other people are going to say about you, and of course, the big one, the fear of losing your hard-earned money. These fears can be completely paralyzing, keeping you stuck on that safe path of just selling your time.
But here's the thing. Fear can be managed. You can actually work through it. When Elon Musk was asked why he risked his entire fortune on SpaceX, something everyone thought would fail, he shared a really simple mental trick he uses to conquer fear. And it all boils down to asking yourself one question. He just asks himself, what is the absolute worst that could possibly happen? Not the big, scary, vague monster in your imagination, but the specific, real-world worst-case outcome. He realized the worst thing that could happen was that he'd lose all his money, but he'd gain an unbelievable amount of knowledge. For him, that wasn't a risk. It was just the price of a world-class education.
You see, when you actually analyze it like that, when you sit down and write out the worst-case scenario and exactly how you'd bounce back, you almost always find that your fear is just a misunderstanding. It's an overblown illusion in your head that you can pretty much dismantle with a little bit of logic.
So, at the end of the day, we're all left with a choice. Will you continue down the path of selling your time, your single most limited resource? Or will you start to think like a builder and create a system that works for you? The path you choose from here is completely up to you.